Last week on the show, we promised you guys some bracketology. So the SEO trends available to us are brackets and stuck ships. So just be thankful that we chose this one. So here we go. The 8 worst Republicans. We're calling it our March Badness tournament.
Yes.
Here's how this works.
Yes.
Okay, I have 8 teams for you to choose from, the awful 8. So I'm going to read you 2 names out of each region, right? So we have the West, the East, the South, and the Midwest. That's how the NCAA tournament works. You guys, you two,
Thanks
you
for
get to
telling me
debate
that.
amongst... No problem. You get to debate amongst yourselves, and you choose a winner of those 2. Now, in a couple of cases, because we're here to have fun, I'm going to tell you about who was defeated to get into the awful 8, right? We good?
Okay, yeah.
Great.
Sure.
Yes, great.
We're following
Exciting.
your lead, whatever you say.
Okay, so we're going to start out in the West. We've got some heat coming out of the top of this bracket. Stephen Miller has the 3 seed. Now, Lovett branded him a C+ Santa Monica fascist, but Stephen Miller, he played himself into shape over the years. He found some creative ways to be evil, and he ended up with the 3 seed, okay? Now, we had a play-in game to get to the second team in the West. Nixon superfan and Trump sycophant Hugh Hewitt went up against a media-killing nerd bent on global domination named Mark Zuckerberg. Now, on paper, guys... on paper, this sounds exciting, but no, not in practice. Zuckerberg is a billionaire. Hugh's loyalty can be bought. So Zuckerberg is the second awful Republican in the West with the 17. So now you guys get to choose. Stephen Miller versus Mark Zuckerberg. Stephen Miller.
Wow.
That's an
He's the
interesting.
That's
interesting.
so tough.
It's
Good,
interesting,
good,
right?
good game.
Because it's a question about flash and sizzle versus fundamentals.
Yes.
Right?
Stephen Miller is the Zion Williamson. He's got raw talent. They both went to Duke. He's a pure scorer. But like Zuck is awful. You just don't really know why.
Mark Zuckerberg has done more damage worldwide because Donald Trump would still have been awful and terrible and inhumane and racist and xenophobic without Stephen Miller. And Stephen Miller, as I've always said, not just a racist, a terrible speechwriter. And so I think
I agree with that.
I just think Stephen Miller isn't that effective at being that evil. He's just not even that effective. Mark Zuckerberg, he's bad. He's bad.
It's a cute, Stephen Miller is an acute harm. Mark Zuckerberg is a society-wrenching, global negative influence that affects us all in every single day in small ways and large ways. So yeah, I agree. I think Zuckerberg wins that fight.
All right. Zuck. Okay. Guys, going to the East now. Looming large in the East is the reigning champion, Donald Trump, with a 1 seed. You know him. There's not a lot I have to say here, though I do have some very sad news.
It's the Duke of the bracket.
He's the Duke of the bracket. Not this year. They suck. Donald Trump Jr. broke COVID protocols, and he got disqualified from entering the tournament. He's our VCU of this year. Yeah, I know. It's heartbreaking. So
That's tough.
The second spot in the East was also a play-in game, guys, okay? We had Politico Playbook against Tucker Carlson. Now, listen. I'll be the first to
New playbook.
I'll be the first to admit that Politico Playbook, they got off to a hot start this year. They're cutting and pasting Stephen Miller quotes. They're both siding democracy, but Tucker puts in the work night after night. He's a grinder, so he's in the 4 seed. So your choice out of the East, Donald Trump, admittedly having a down year. He lost his platform. He got out-hustled by Democrats against Tucker, the grinder, dominates the offensive glass. Who do you choose?
You know what?
Wow.
I'm gonna go with an upset here. I'm gonna say Tucker Carlson. I'm looking to the future. I'm looking to the future. I know.
It's a young squad, but has heart, and Trump is tired.
Yeah.
He has a lot of experience in the arena to do harm, but Tucker has watched that team play for a long time, and he's bringing a lot of what Trump used to do with a kind of a youthful vigor and vim that can't be beat. I agree.
I also would just love to get it out in the ether that Donald Trump is now nervous about a challenge from Tucker Carlson taking it. I like to see that fight in public too, because
Maybe in playbook actually.
Speaking of worse.
That's a really good idea. Okay, so the South is the blue blood bracket. These are just old school shithead Republicans. So with the number 5 seed, we got a man with no principles, no dignity, the sad sack senator from Cancun, Ted Cruz, as noted earlier, last seen lurking near the Rio Grande, like some sort of swamp creature. Okay, so the second team, again, we had a play-in game to get here. We had Marjorie Taylor Greene out of Georgia. Now, Marjorie has been playing out of her mind recently. Some might say literally. She promotes QAnon. She promotes insurrectionists, the 9/11 truther movement. Unfortunately for her, she went up against a blue blood named George W. Bush. And guys, watching loose change a couple times doesn't help you against the guy who did 9/11. So that's the challenge. I'm obviously kidding.
He did 9/11. I forget. Yeah, he did do 9/11.
He was there for it. It's weird if you think about it. Look, we're joking here. George invaded Iraq, clear winner number 2. So now you choose the South. Ted Cruz, who beat Jimmy Kimmel 1-on-1 in basketball, which isn't relevant but seemed like it, against George W. Bush, who has the pedigree, the storied history, though he was a legacy admission.
Look, this is easy for me, and I know this might sound hypocritical because during the Zuckerberg versus Miller match, we said Zuckerberg because he had a greater global impact than Miller. George W. Bush clearly had a greater global impact than Ted Cruz because of the Iraq War. But Ted Cruz is a fucking asshole. It's got to be Ted Cruz. It has to be Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz sucks.
Yeah, no, he does suck. He does. Look, I don't want to disagree with you. I do think he sucks. But it's interesting because
and he's
George
still a
W.
threat.
Bush,
I would say he's still a threat too. George W. Bush
still
is
a
not
threat.
doing
That
anything
is
to
true.
anyone anymore.
That is true. That is true. Though the damage done by George W. Bush continues, and we continue to pay a price for it. The damage, ongoing destruction of our economy, of our political institutions, of our environment, of the Middle East, like those continue. And George W. Bush represented the genteel version of Trumpism, of republicanism, that did a lot of damage. I disagree. I just disagree. Ultimately, Ted Cruz is a leader who follows people around and then gets there and tries to run in front and tell them how excited he was to lead them there. So I'm going to say George W. Bush, personally. That's how I feel. That's how I feel today.
Ted Cruz left 100 people to die of hypothermia in Texas while he went to Cancun just a few weeks ago.
He would, and you know what? Ted Cruz would have to do that 1,000 times to start competing with the fucking body count of George W. Bush.
Well, what we're learning here, guys, what we're learning here is that I should have thought up a mechanism to handle a tie. So we're gonna
you break it.
We're gonna move forward. Listen, if we go Ted Cruz, it's been all upstates. George W. Bush would be my vote, but listen, this is not about me. This is about the listeners. So let's go to the Midwest, which is just a brawl. Okay, so we have our 8th seed here. He plays an up-tempo game. He pushes Russian propaganda. He pushes anti-vaxxer conspiracy theories. He thinks Greenland was once green. Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson. He's in there with the 8th seed. He's also hydroxychloroquine's last best hope. So the play-in game for the next spot was controversial again, guys. It was all Kentucky. We had Senator Mitch McConnell, the Prince of Darkness, earned himself the nickname Cocaine Mitch, so he is subjected to extra drug screening before these games, against Abe Lincoln. Now, I know this. Hear me out. This is controversial. Hear me out. Lincoln suspended the writ of habeas corpus in 1861. The 2021 GOP loves that. But Lincoln is famously a pro-union guy. The modern GOP, they want to secede. So Mitch
Tommy
took
on the
this
San
one.
Francisco Board of Supervisors deciding school names?
There were a lot of Republican votes that got Lincoln in. I told you it was controversial. This wasn't me that did this. It was the voters. So, again, who do you choose, guys? You got Mitch McConnell. He's a bit like Syracuse. He builds an impenetrable zone around the Senate to stop everything. Ron Johnson is basically playing a different game out there. He often seems to dunk on himself. Ron Johnson versus Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell.
I mean, Mitch McConnell may be one of the most destructive forces in politics of the last several decades.
I just think, Ron Johnson is a baby with a hand grenade. I'm not saying I'm not scared, but I don't really know how to finish that. I just think I'm going to just picture a baby with a hand grenade, sort of an image.
Yeah, you got that far. That was pretty good.
I like that. Okay, so, that does it. Our Fascist Four is Zuck, Tucker, Bush or Cruz versus McConnell. Maybe the listeners can tiebreak for us. We'll do like a Twitter poll for Bush Cruz.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that too. I think that's great. That's great. This is an interesting tourney. I'm excited. So Dan and I can talk more about the Final Four the Fascist Four The
Fascist Four, thank you.
On Thursday. We'll dig in. Dan's going to be very happy that Mitch McConnell made it. I know that.
Thank you for getting the branding right. Dan might actually understand some of the basketball-related puns in here, so that'll be good too.
A play-in game.
A lot of playing games in this tournament. A lot of playing games.
I know. It made it fun. But that's what I got.
Bucknell, Gonzaga.
Okay.
Gonzaga's
Some of the
very
words
good.
I
They're
only
number
hear
one
around
seed.
this time of year.
Here we go. Well, that's our show for today. Look, we'll be asking you guys to participate in March Badness on the internet, so look out for that. And we will see you on Thursday, where Dan will be back.